Physics determines four so-called fundamental forces: gravitational, electromagnetic, strong and weak interactions. A palpable instance can be the fact that every piece of matter being of temperature of the nearly impossible absolute zero emits electromagnetic radiation, just as the bodies constantly emits infrared radiation. That's what thermal cameras see. So according to the first law of thermodynamics, every physical body, solid, fluid or gas, including us, constantly loses energy, which is while absorbed by some other body. That leads us to the conclusion that almost everything influences something, and almost everything is influenced in some way by something else. We'll come back to this statement in a bit. Continuing the physical thread, physics, like the majority of the science subjects, is by many considered hard, forcing learning by heart, permanently complicated. And of course, that is relative. But objectively looking, whether we are physicists or not, it is certain that physics is a very broad field of science, describing essentially everything and events occurring in the universe. What we don't usually think about is that on the lessons in a primary or secondary school, we get only an overview of the areas of this subject. We learn only some basic principles, specific formula, because there is still little time to go deeper. And that is exactly what mostly disturbs us learning, the lack of context. So missing the wider picture. And unfortunately, it does not concern exclusively the STEM subjects. It's a larger problem. Since the preschool time, we are being persuaded to favor delivery of knowledge in the form of definitions, tenets, comparisons, listed and categorized. That's a wonderful technique for storing information, but not for learning. Psychology researchers found that most information, particularly when related to academic content and highly skilled activities, must be processed in some way before being stored in long-term memory to be retained more permanently. The transfer of information from short-term to long-term memory is accomplished through different strategies, and practice is key to this transfer process. And that idea of learning through exploring in education is called the experiential learning theory, created to complement the more traditional teaching. It tells us that teaching, including teaching yourself, so learning, is most effective when a student is experiencing the knowledge, learning by testing it out practically, or discovering the concept or relationship on their own. That concerns most of the subjects, the science subjects, human sciences, including arts, but it's not only them, not only school. We learn constantly, all day long, both practical and theoretical skills needed in our private lives. As the wildest animals, we're exploring the surrounding world, trying to build the most complete picture of it possible to be able to survive in it. Although it is not a jungle, it's a 21st century home. But one thing stays unchanged. We know it very vaguely. For instance, do you know how an automatic pen works? These are usually just 5 pieces of plastic and a spring, but how does it know when to pop out and when to hide? Or why on the bottom of a computer mouse there is always a light? Why in election, even though over half of voters voted for candidate A, not always it is them to win? These items, ideas, techniques surround us. We rely on them all the time, and they are almost completely strange to us. Do you remember these? Lack of context is the problem. And here we face the same issue. Knowing just the most important information in the real life is rarely enough, because nearly everything is connected. The additional pieces of information, the context, helps our minds connect different concepts so that it is more likely for them to find their place in the long-term memory and stay there for some time. Context not only helps us remember better, lets us understand. We associate, find links between pieces of data more effectively, and because nihil novis sub sole, there is nothing new under the sun, so you must have bricks if you want to build something. Taking the context into consideration, it becomes much easier to come up with new ideas. Finally, a thing we have not talked about yet, the time. A number of things I have mentioned today might seem novel, but in fact, the idea that you have to undertake discovering the world by yourself to be able to understand it properly was stated clearly by a man over 70 years ago. It was Albert Einstein. He said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but be when he contemplates mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery each day. Never lose a holy curiosity." May the curiosity be with you. Thank you.